Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, this is Jesse with the Common Nerd, and Assassin's Creed Shadows is one of the games that's probably been some of the most controversial stuff that's happened for Ubisoft in quite a while, outside of just having bad games, and of course Star Wars Outlaws absolutely, completely, and totally tanking. There's a very good possibility that Assassin's Creed Shadows will be the game to put the final nail in the coffin and completely and totally bankrupt Ubisoft. Why? Well, there's been a lot of controversy about the fact that they're literally going to place their very first Assassin's game literally based on something that very much looks like a ninja in Japan, and guess what? Instead of even giving us a main protagonist that is going to be of Japanese descent, no, they decided to take a one-off story, literally that is almost considered completely and totally fiction by all of the actual historians out there, and of course make it into the main protagonist out there because of representation, boys and girls. And well, after the trailer got completely and totally ratioed, well, of course, there's just more meltdowns going on over there, and an alleged Assassin's Creed news account over there on Twitter, over there on X, has completely and totally had a meltdown over everybody pushing back against all of the very obvious DEI kind of nonsense that is going on over here with Ubisoft. And that is just the funniest thing here, because these people need to be mocked and ridiculed, boys and girls. We are around here trying to make shame great again. And laughing at these kind of people is exactly what needs to be done, because obviously this is one of them situations where they don't want to point out any of the obvious issues with the game or talk about the fact that Star Wars Outlaws was a broken and buggy mess and should also worry fans about Assassin's Creed Shadows. The game obviously got delayed several months out there, and it's their last shot at making any kind of profit whatsoever, and maybe push them slightly out of the kind of massive debt that Ubisoft finds itself in right now. So we've got this lovely little article over here from Fandom Pulse and a dear sweet John F. Trent. Assassin's Creed news account wants to remove grifters from gaming. Oh yes, boys and girls, because anybody that calls out the forced diversity, inclusion, and equity nonsense that obviously appears in all of these games, anybody that's out there willing to call out the woke cult for all of their nonsense, well, we're just a bunch of grifters. It's not like I've been playing Assassin's Creed games since the very first one and was highly excited for almost every single new one that came out for years and decades. No. We're just a bunch of grifters. We don't want our games to be good. It's not that we want historical representation and accuracy in our video games. No. We're just a bunch of dirty grifters, boys and girls. Well, this grifter right here is going to get into all of the juicy details of this article for us, boys and girls. But if you do like all of our wonderful grifting, please, if you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And share it out with all your friends, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 800 over here on the gaming channel. We're sailing our way towards 900, and I could not do that without every single one of you. So please join our wonderful grifting community, our wonderful grifting fellowship around here by subscribing. And if you'd like to leave us a comment in the section down below, let us know what you think about all this. Do you think the people that are calling this stuff out for the diversity, inclusion, and equity nonsense, do you think they're legit? Do you believe there are actual fans out there who want this franchise to actually be good and not end up getting bought by the Chinese Tencent? Or do you think we're all just a bunch of grifters out there who just want to go, anti-woke, yada, yada, yada? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below, because unlike this guy's account, all opinions are actually welcome here. And if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. So from John F. Trent over at Fandom Pulse Substack, an Assassin's Creed news account declared it wants to remove so-called grifters from gaming. The X account Lavila3, which as you can see here from the picture, Assassin's Creed News is what they've renamed their nonsense to out there, wrote, "Enough. I've watched long enough. I'm not going to let the grifters turn my hobby into nothing." Okay, which hobby are you specifically talking about? Assassin's Creed as a whole, or are you talking about like video gaming? I'm not really sure. I've never really heard somebody refer to a video game franchise as a hobby, but I guess gaming in general would be. But either way, this is where they're at. The account then declared, "There is no room in the Assassin's Creed community for racism, misogyny, hate, agitation, lies, or death threats." Well, I certainly agree with at least the last two, but I mean, calling something out for obviously being a race swap made up based on an absolutely fake story that nobody believes, and deciding to disrespect all of Japanese culture by doing a bunch of lazy kind of research and just basically Google searching things in order to throw them into your video game without getting the proper authorization. Well, guess what? Those aren't lies in any way, shape, or form. Those are all verifiable facts and absolute truth. That's not racist. That's misogynistic. That's not agitation in any way. That's just calling the truth out for what the truth is, about the actual realities of this game. And guess what? This game is going to end up bankrupting Ubisoft because the controversy has been so absolutely insane. You will never see a trailer get absolutely roasted into oblivion like you've seen with the Assassin's Creed one and it not end up flopping. Even if the games still get more, even if the trailers still get more likes than they do dislikes, if it's not overwhelming, especially with the kind of years and the hundreds of millions of dollars, probably $500 million that Ubisoft has spent on this game, unless it hits 10 million copies sold worldwide, this thing will not come even close to sniffing a profit. And considering Star Wars Outlaws couldn't even hit 1 million because of how much of a mess that game was, and because of it had the exact same kind of diversity, inclusion, and equity nonsense, all of the woke garbage that, guess what, gamers don't want in their escapism. They don't want real world politics in what's supposed to be something that gets them away from all of the nonsense of the real world. I know, color a shock there that they don't want that. But of course, the reality of that doesn't mean anything to these people because these people are actually the grifters. They're the ones trying to push an agenda and trying to drum up controversy. The rest of us are just honest fans out there that don't want this kind of garbage to be forced into our video games and forced into our escapism. But of course, the truth doesn't matter. One user responded, what if there are people who just don't like the fact that a company refuses to respect a culture and its history, but isn't trying to promote racism, misogyny, and hate? If you say it in a normal way, it's fine. Well, yeah, because when you actually get pushed back with like some actual like reality and like, you know, an actual normal pinch, because that's the thing about it. They honestly, this is what these people believe. These woke activist cultists, right? Because that's what this person clearly is. If they decide to put out a list like this kind of nonsense, these are all their favorite little buzzwords that we hear from the woke cult all of the time, right? Yada, yada, yada. This person is the one who's the grifter. This is the person that wants to push an agenda and wants to drum up support for something that actually doesn't exist. The modern audience. Nobody wants this garbage. The modern audience doesn't exist. And if they do, they're in such minuscule numbers that guess what? They couldn't even make Concord a success, boys and girls. The video game history disaster in history out there, something that was literally shut down 2 weeks by Sony PlayStation after it failed to garner any kind of support and any kind of interaction for gameplay in any way, shape, or form. This is what the modern audience represents. And guess what? They don't sell video games. And it's the reason why Ubisoft is going bankrupt, boys and girls. It's a tacit admission that is Ubisoft, the developer of Assassin's Creed Shadows, who is promoting and pushing much of the things the account accuses so-called grifters of doing. And the evidence of Ubisoft doing this is very long. First, the company worked with author Thomas Lockley to promote the idea that one of the game's main characters, Yasuki, is a legendary samurai. The claim is heavily contested in the Japanese historians, informing that there are very few historical records that Yasuki is so difficult to say. The history of Yasuki has not been the subject of much research, in part because the history of personalities is not the mainstream of historical studies. In the 15-volume, the collection talks about the fact that the biographies chronicles Nobunaga's life, yada, 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 sword and a house, indicating that he treated him as a samurai. However, that is something that only appears in this biography among the dozens of manuscripts of the Nobunaga Chronicle, and we cannot deny the possibility that this was added later when the manuscript was transcribed. Oh, you mean Western localizers put their own spin on a Japanese story? Who would have ever seen that coming? And this is the issue with all of this kind of stuff. And there's a laundry list of all of the kind of stuff that we've gone over time and time again, of all of the different kind of nonsense, of all of the different kind of garbage, their apologies, them getting sued, them getting yelled at by people in the Japanese government. I mean, this is a laundry list of things that they have done in the past. Don't believe me? Go watch all of the other videos that we've done over all of this kind of nonsense since all of this information first broke out there. It's the same kind of garbage nonsense that we have seen time and time again. Not only because this is the problem, right? The diversity, inclusion, and equity nonsense, right? It sounds good on its face value. But the problem is every time they decide to go down this path, we know that they sacrifice absolutely everything else at the altar of that cult. And it doesn't include just forced diversity and absolute retellings and disrespect to Japanese history. No, what it also includes is broken and busted gameplay, poor character development, bad stories, horrible dialogue, and stuff that just doesn't resonate with general players and general audiences out there. How do we know this? Because we have seen this happen so many times before. We can go back a couple of years. I can say that now that we're in January of 2025, but literally we can go back a couple of years to the Saints Row reboot, right? A Saints Row, I was a huge fan of that franchise. I loved all of those games. I played them all the way through, and I was cautiously optimistic to see what a reboot might end up happening. And guess what happened? It was nothing but diversity, inclusion, and equity nonsense. All of the marketing was nothing but talking points about how they were going to have all of these people included, and it was going to be so woke and so this, that, and the other. And guess what? Not only was the game a woke disaster, but it was also a broken and buggy mess. The exact same thing happened with Star Wars Outlaws. So why would you expect anything different? If they weren't willing to put in the effort to make sure that the stuff that they were using was historically accurate for this game, then why would you think they're going to give you good gameplay? Why would you think they're going to give you good mechanics? Why would you think they'd give you good dialogue? It's simply not going to happen. And this grifter out there that's trying to accuse the rest of us of going, you're just trying to you're trying to hate on the game for the sake of hating on it because you're a bunch of racist and misogynists. Well, guess what? We all know who's going to end up having the last laugh, because pushing for your modern audience, as much as you'd like to use all your buzzwords and accuse all of us that are critical of Ubisoft and the Assassin's Creed franchise in its current state, go ahead. Use all those same silly words you've used a million times. Those words mean nothing anymore. And you know why? Because the modern audiences that all of these major corporations continue to claim they have been chasing does not exist. They have been dancing with the devil, and now these companies are getting burned, and Ubisoft is a very good possibility going completely and totally bankrupt next year. That is not what any of us wanted to see. I don't want to see Tencent go out there and buy up a bunch of the wonderful properties that Ubisoft currently owns right now, because then every game you're going to have come out from them is going to be just a bunch of crazy nonsense. It might end up being a really good game, but we also know it's going to be filled with spyware, because that's what China does. And at the end of the day, boys and girls, that could be the way of things. We might end up getting a good story, but what are we going to end up losing in the process? And guess what? Grifters like this that continue to push this agenda using all of these buzzwords are the reason this industry has found itself in the state that it is. They have convinced all of these executives, they have convinced all of these marketing people, or they have infested these people and acted like a cult and either converted people or completely and totally taken over these companies, which is the case in most cases. And now Ubisoft is facing bankruptcy. So go ahead, keep alienating fans, keep calling all of us grifters. At the end of the day, people like you that use those buzzwords and push this kind of agenda, you don't amount to any video game sales or movie ticket sales for that matter. We have years of history proving this. And guess what? Assassin's Creed Shadows and Ubisoft is going to end up going the same way. Because guess what? Go woke, go broke exists for a reason. And Assassin's Creed Shadows is very much woke.